A wonderful good day, and thank you for hanging in this wonderful hall without air conditioning. So you guys are hardened souls. I appreciate that. It's really my pleasure to share some thoughts around what's happening in the world around AI, why it's happening right now, and what does it mean for the mobility world that we so much love and invest so much time in. I look at it as a generative model that changes generations. And we are really looking at this as one of the key milestones in history that will change the way we are thinking about how humans interact with software, how humans interact with other humans potentially, and how we as humanity will move forward with a lot of challenging scenarios and complexities that we have in our hands. Before I do that, though, I want to show you something that we have been working on at Microsoft, and that gives you an idea of what this generative AI is all about and what the power of these capabilities are actually capable of sharing.
Let's take a look at how CoPilot and Power BI is empowering everyone to quickly find and share insights. For example, say I'm an HR analyst who is constantly handling requests from my management to do analysis and provide answers. It can take hours and even days to respond with new reports. Now with CoPilot and Power BI, I can simply describe the report I want to build and get insights in seconds. Maybe we need a breakdown of some of our employee data to understand demographics and hiring trends. I just describe what I need, and CoPilot will automatically analyze my data and create a new report based on my needs. Immediately, I have a beautiful Power BI report that has been automatically created and is fully interactive. I can start slicing and dicing my data to explore deeper. CoPilot added the charts and slicers I asked for, but also conveniently gives me options to adjust the output to get just what I need. For example, let's switch to ask for metrics and trends in a slightly different layout. Automatically, CoPilot updates the report. Let's go ahead and keep this report page. It goes much further. I can also ask questions such as, why is our attrition rate going up? CoPilot responds by adding a new page to my report and tapping into Power BI's built-in advanced analysis capabilities for finding key influencers for variables in my data. In addition to giving me a summary of an insight about different employee types having different attrition rates, I can easily explore Power BI's key influencer visual to see what's driving the biggest impact in our attrition rate. I can even automatically see the most significant segments in my data just by clicking. Now let's go back to the first page and finish up our new report. I'm going to ask CoPilot to make it look like our existing exec dashboard, and instantly it's applied the same formatting and style and adjusted the layout to match. Best of all, I can still interact directly with the Power BI report that CoPilot has created. So for example, if I wanted to manually change this bar chart to a tree map on my own, it's easy to do with just a few clicks. Let's add employee functional area, and now I can filter by this new field. Finally, to make the report even easier for my team to understand, I'm going to ask CoPilot to add a rich text description of my data right inside the report. This narrative summary is fully dynamic, and not only does CoPilot highlight interesting insights from my data, it will update the summary every time the data is refreshed or people filter the report. And just like that, in seconds, I've created a report that would have taken hours or days to do manually. CoPilot, built on top of Azure OpenAI, is truly revolutionary for how we empower everyone to find and share insights.
Now, I hope you have seen what this language capability is able to do. You can just write text. Obviously, you could talk to it, and then it gets translated into text. And the system will automatically take care of creating beautiful charts in this case. But we, as Microsoft and other competitors are building similar capabilities, will also produce Word documents for you, PowerPoints, and summarize meetings for you, and so forth. And so this is all about the generative AI capabilities currently focused on large language models. Now, when you're looking at what's happening in the industry, the idea is, oh yeah, we're talking about ChatGPT or OpenAI as capabilities and think that AI technology is kind of there. We have now seen that the capability is not only there, it has been utilized already to do a number of things. First of all, on the bottom half of the slide, you see that ChatGPT, based on the OpenAI capabilities, is able to pass any test that humanity has put out. A law exam, the bar, MBAs, the CPA community, the people that help you with your taxes, was very proud when ChatGPT failed or only passed the exam with 40% passing rate. It took 2 weeks before ChatGPT was over 85% passing rate. So anything that humans can do in terms of knowledge passing, the ChatGPT or the OpenAI system will be able to do. Because it has access to all the knowledge, it can create the necessary connections between knowledge and then effectively apply that knowledge to various problems. But not only have we done this in theoretical cases like passing the MBA, we've also worked with companies like GM who have announced their intent to bring the OpenAI capabilities into their cars, and with our friends from Mercedes. Mercedes came to Redmond, where Microsoft is hosted, right near Seattle, sometime in May, April, and we discussed what we could do with OpenAI capabilities in the car. And within 6 to 8 weeks, our friends in Stuttgart, Seattle, and other places working with us were able to bring ChatGPT scenarios into the car. And as far as I know, last I checked, it was about deployed on 1 million cars in various parts of the world. So this is not technology that is out there somewhere. This is technology that is here. It is ready to change how you think about interaction with cars, interaction with any system that you effectively will look forward to build capabilities on top of, and how you automate and interact with those capabilities from going forward. Now, when you look at why is this happening today, as the saying goes, we are standing on top of the shoulders of giants. The foundational models are a succession capability in terms of research that started in the 90s, got a breakthrough in 2015 by our friends from Google with deep learning, and then the deep learning capabilities have been refined and refined and refined. That ultimately led to the breakthrough that the OpenAI GPT models have been able to show. These foundational models sit on top of cloud AI supercomputers. These supercomputers are a key part of how the AI models are being trained for a long, long time on top of massive data. In the case of OpenAI, we as Microsoft provide them with the cloud AI supercomputers on Azure, but also provide them with perfect copies of the internet through our Bing service, so that they have effectively the knowledge of humanity at their fingertips to incorporate into these models. This confluence of influence came together to really give us these capabilities, where you just got a glimpse from our Power BI friends in terms of how you can create now fancy reports, very deep insights, using just words and not having to understand the tool, just understand what you're looking for, and the tool does the job to effectively bring the data out for yourself. Now, for most of you will have seen this, but I want to be complete. The idea of the OpenAI service is really content creation by API. And when I use the word language, I want to use the word language in its largest form. Language is something obviously we use in words. But if you go back in the past, and there's this nice saying that says a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's something that we should think about as language as well. And then there's the language we as humans created as intermediaries to talk to computers, code. And all three of those are effectively incorporated and available as part of the OpenAI service. You can effectively just talk to the system, like you saw with the Power BI example, and it will either respond to you with words, or in the case of Power BI, we automate the Power BI system to effectively build the capabilities. In the case of code, in the middle you see a SQL statement. I used to be a SQL person in terms of writing code for SQL Server, building applications on SQL Server, and so I know how to build complex SQL statements. I don't believe that in the future I will build more complex SQL statements. I most likely will just ask the system, here's what I would like you to do, and the system will create the SQL statement for you. And then last but not least, we effectively are able to generate images today. The next version of OpenAI will also take images as input. I don't know when that's going to happen, but these capabilities are clearly on their path of being incorporated. The example I choose here is a show me AI as a responsible pair programmer. And this is not a picture that existed somewhere on the internet or some parts of it, and it got put together by OpenAI. This is a brand new picture that got built by OpenAI. It got generated based upon its understanding of what a responsible pair programmer is and its self-representation of how AI could help you in this picture. And you can imagine from there what you can do with this kind of capability, because anything that has to do with human language, in whatever language you would like to communicate with the system, is possible. Again, we will see some other examples down the line in terms of what people have been doing. And it's really remarkable that all of this has happened over the last 10 years, but when you look at the adoption of these capabilities, we have never seen such a phenomenon. I don't know the numbers quite in hard terms, but the last consumer phenomenon was Instagram. Our Instagram friends took about 100 million, took 12 months to reach 100 million users. ChatGPT, when that got released, got to 100 million users in 2 weeks because of the adoption and the power of the system. It is remarkable. I assume a lot of you will have played with it, and it's really interesting what you can get out of it. Now, what does Microsoft do with this capability? So first of all, we partner with our friends from OpenAI and provide them with the supercomputing infrastructure, data, and other capabilities. And we also instantiate another version of OpenAI called the Azure OpenAI service. And the Azure OpenAI service is something that we use internally for all of our work with AI. And we, of course, offer this as a service to our customers. And what you can do with this, some examples are written on the slide: summarize text, chatbot, virtual agent scenarios, reason over structured data and unstructured data, and so forth. And why would you care about this being an Azure OpenAI service instead of the generalized Azure, the OpenAI service that's provided by the OpenAI company? It's very simple. From our perspective, Azure OpenAI makes sure that the data that you put into Azure OpenAI stays isolated from the rest of the customers. So let's say my friends from Mercedes, they're putting data into Azure and OpenAI, stays Mercedes data. It doesn't get shared with anybody else. In the case of Azure OpenAI, we do not use your data to train the foundational models. This data is just for you. It stays within your tenant and stays isolated. And of course, we continue to provide you with the robust enterprise compliance and security controls that you're used to from Azure. So from our perspective, Azure OpenAI is the service that you want to utilize in order to drive enterprise scenarios and go from there. Now, how do we build these applications? So Microsoft uses the term CoPilot for all of our AI applications. We have copilots for Microsoft 365. You will have seen the Power BI copilot. The Dynamics team has built copilots. We have built security copilots. And we have built a very important one for the code developers community, which is called the GitHub CoPilot. And for us, a copilot is there to augment human capabilities. That's our focus on AI. We believe that AI is here to help humans to do a better job, do it more productive, do it faster, and potentially with more and different capabilities than you as a single person are able to do. The GitHub Copilot is the capability that we have been shipping for quite some time. And now we've got some data to share with the community. I personally, when I heard first about the GitHub Copilot work, I was kind of like, will the developer community like it? Will they say, actually, I really want to embrace this capability and live with it? Or will they say, absolutely not. This will take my job and will effectively replace me. What you see here is that the developers are what I hoped they would be, which is they are faster with repetitive tasks, they are more productive, and they can focus on things that really matter, rather than having to focus on typing endless lines of code. The CEO of GitHub, Thomas Dohmke, another fellow German, said in an interview that he believes in 5 years' time, 80% of code will be written by AI. I don't know if that number is true or not. He is also looking at a glass bowl. But from my perspective, it's a good idea for AI to write the code, because then we humans, the developers, can think about the problems way more and way longer than having to write code and making mistakes and so forth, whereas AI will be less error-prone to deliver capabilities. So think of AI as your friend, as your helper, to do things that you don't really want to do. That's a good way of thinking about copilots. From our perspective, the generative AI will also have ginormous impact on the mobility industry. Here are some examples of how we believe it will change the way it works. The best way of doing it is find a Mercedes that has the ChatGPT capabilities built in and take a test drive and play with it. I don't know if they're showing it at the show, but it certainly would be worth an experience and experiment to go in there. But we believe that at the end of the day, from customer experiences to core operations to the capability profiles that you're hiring for, that you're thinking about when you bring people in, all of these will be things that will be changed by the generative AI capabilities that are put under the Azure OpenAI capabilities that we provide. Now let's go and talk about some scenarios. Generative design is something that we are seeing in a very, very interesting way. There is a toy company that builds toy cars. And these toy cars are very, very fancy and advanced. Those guys the designers are extremely creative. However, they have one problem. They know what a toy car is supposed to look like. And they effectively are pushing the boundaries, but they don't break the boundaries. Now, the company that we worked with and some of the designers decided to use the image creation capabilities of OpenAI to see how they can push the toy car boundaries even further. And they simply asked the system, after providing a couple of data samples, go and design me a fancy toy car. Now, AI has zero idea what a toy car is, none. Therefore, it doesn't have a box or boundaries. So the system created a bunch of very interesting designs that the designers were like, whoa, we would have never thought about it because, again, we are living in a little box. We know what a toy car is supposed to look like. And they, of course, didn't take the entire design. That's not the point. But they were inspired by the design capabilities and elements that generative AI put there. And they took over some of those capabilities, and they will show up in the next generation of their car. And those are some of the examples you will see coming out, in addition to personalized sales copilots, the business intelligence capability we have already seen. I've never used in my life Power BI. I think I now could. With language, I'm fairly okay. So from my perspective, it's certainly a helper for me to be looking great to my boss if he ever asks me for numbers. So far, in my 10 years with him, he has not asked me for a single number, so I'm okay. Now, software code. I saw a fantastic demo at a customer event where they effectively showed me how they used ChatGPT, the CoPilot capabilities, and building complete websites. The person said, I have no idea how to write HTML code, so I just worked with the CoPilot, and the CoPilot built me the website. And then he was playing around with it, starting with English, but then he also used Hebrew. For those who don't have experience with the Hebrew language, it's one of the language goes from right to left. So very, very complicated for humans if you're not used to it. And the ChatGPT or the CoPilot system had no problem with that at all. And we also said, why don't we try this in Mandarin? So the person, instead of English, he typed Mandarin keywords in. The code got generated just the same. Document summarization, there's another really great use case. Most of you might have heard about a company called CarMax. CarMax is a US company that is selling used cars. And they have a ginormous inventory. And they had staff writers to write documents about the car, a product description at the end of the day. And they never were able to really do a good job about describing the car that they were trying to sell. Now, with the OpenAI capabilities, they're able to provide a couple of key points about the car, and the OpenAI system wrote the product description. And so now, you effectively, when you go to the CarMax site, you will see product descriptions that have been entirely written by AI. And they now feel that they're able to service their customers much better because the customer simply says what's important for him or her, and the system will automatically generate the product description, and so forth and so forth. Then, if you're going into ADAS, synthetic scene generation. Again, using language to effectively go describe the scene what you want, and the system will effectively generate it. Cybersecurity threat defense. You can effectively use Security CoPilot from Microsoft to do this, but there's lots and lots of other innovation that's coming from there, where effectively all the log files that are generated I think Microsoft is generating trillions of signals of security intelligence every day, and we're using now CoPilot to effectively bring it all together and figure out a way to describe to you as a security or threat intelligence person what's happening, where the threat is coming from, and bringing it together for you. From our perspective, all of these kind of tasks are really hard for humans to do, take a long time, whereas the system can generate or bring all of this data together, put it into something that you as a person can then go, understand, validate, and then take action. The systems itself is not good at taking action. It is great at summarizing, it's great at creating content, but you are the one that effectively has to make the content really shine and bring it out to whoever you bring it out to in terms of usage perspective. Our view is there will be copilots for every role and every task in any enterprise. We are building all copilots for all of our products. You will see that happening over the next couple of months. And we will continue to work with customers and partners to effectively go and build more intelligence so that we can, for example, help with the talent shortage. I'm sure there were people on the stage here that talked about the global talent shortage. Now, the productivity example that we have seen with GitHub CoPilot, for example, shows that a CoPilot deployment can generate up to 40 to 50% productivity increase. Now, that's 1.5 developers for every one you have. That's pretty good. And now imagine if we can get this to the shop floor. If we can get it into the showroom and the sales room. Instead of you having expensive salespeople, have this system effectively help the person that is interested in a vehicle or in a scenario explore it by themselves, talk to the system and generate the capabilities, the scenarios, maybe a custom car. Instead of a configurator that's very complicated, have the configurator just be text. And then the car gets automatically assembled and nobody has to say, oh, if you pick this one and you pick that one, they actually negate each other. You simply say, this is what I care about, and the system will automatically do it. So your imagination is the only real constraint that we have to think about. It's not going to be the capabilities of the technology. It's really about what can you imagine. Now, in order to help you, we have built what we call the CoPilot stack. Azure AI Studio is the product that makes this possible. And at the bottom, you see the infrastructure and the foundational models. You talk to these foundational models in what's called plugins, prompts. And the prompt is effectively the text that you somehow generate and send to the OpenAI systems for processing, and you get a response back. What you first have to do, though, is what's called data grounding. Because obviously you get the OpenAI systems with the knowledge of the internet. But the key knowledge is in your vaults, is in your data servers, and it's in your file servers and so forth. How do you bring that into the system? There's now various ways of taking enterprise data and bring that to Azure OpenAI. Remember, into your tenant, isolated, separated from anybody else, so it's your data, and only your prompts will see your data. And the idea here is that you can bring your knowledge into Azure OpenAI and then run the AI capabilities on top of your knowledge, so that if somebody asks a question about some specific scenario that's important to Mercedes-Benz or BMW, VW, whoever the company is, it's only within the Azure AI tenant with your data. And part of the reason why we're having this AI orchestration layer in there is to help you with bringing the data in. So in the Azure AI Studio, you will now see capabilities pointing to various vector databases, Postgres, text stores, and so forth. You can bring other data sources in, and then you do what's called prompt engineering. And prompt engineering simply is, on the one side, the human being typing something or talking into it, and then you as the CoPilot owner own the prompt. What that means is before it gets sent to the OpenAI system, you get to filter, you get to add, you get to remove, you get to do whatever you like in order to effectively make the prompt say what you want it to say. You then go through the system, and on the way back, you can filter the response. So you can make sure that the system doesn't generate nonsense, doesn't tell the user something that you don't want the user to know or have. And then on top of it, you effectively have the ability to build these applications. And the application is what we call a copilot, or you can also do plugins. A plugin allows you to plug your capability into another copilot, as if it were a part of that specific copilot. And all of that supported, obviously, by the GitHub capabilities in terms of managing the code, managing the system, and the Visual Studio family of products to help you build the capabilities directly. That's what we call the Copilot stack. There are other people that provide similar capabilities. This happens to be the Azure one, to build solutions. One thing that we all need to talk about is responsible AI. When we start using AI, especially at scale, we as teams and users have to be clear, what are we going to do about using AI, and what are we not going to use AI for? I do believe every company that starts to use AI should have a charter that says our usage of AI is XYZ. And here's what we are not going to do with AI. Because I do believe that that's something that everybody needs to drive and everybody needs to understand, so that every user or developer in your enterprise can understand what you're standing for. Microsoft has a very strong charter in this space, but we also build technology into the system directly that help you with being compatible, responsible, fair, non-biased, and so forth. And all of that is directly built into Azure OpenAI. If you don't use Azure OpenAI because you want to use another large language model, you can still use the Azure Content Management Service to make sure that what the user adds into the capabilities is effectively clean, and what comes back out is right. So you can use capabilities regardless which large language model you're using. And again, my plea to all of you, have a responsible AI charter before you go big on AI. Now, from our perspective, and I believe the rapid adoption of AI and generative AI has shown this, every app will be reinvented with AI. I personally believe that a year from now, if you don't have AI built into your application, your users will ask you what's wrong with you. What's missing here is somebody that helps me getting my job done better. Or a different way of building the application altogether. And like with the internet, generative AI will enable new applications, the next Amazon, the next Meta, that effectively we haven't really thought about before. And that's certainly going to happen. I hope Microsoft will be at the forefront of that, but I hope also that some of you will effectively go and show the world what AI can do for humanity based upon your ingenuity. And I want to say goodbye to you with this little picture. Some of you might remember this movie. If you don't, watch it. It's really cool. It's Star Trek 4. It's the Voyage Home. And the Voyage Home is effectively going back to 1980, where Scotty goes into an engineering office, and the first thing he does is, "Hey, computer." And then, of course, everybody looks at him like he's a nutcase and points to the Apple computer in the room. He picks up the mouse and thoughts it's a microphone, as you can see here, and he talks into it, "Hey, computer." And then, of course, he had to type in. My personal view, and that's a Uli view, not a Microsoft view, is that the next generation computing is going to happen where the device is not necessarily what we know today. It's not going to happen in 2 years, 5 years, but it's going to happen where we walk into a room, like today, and I say, instead of me kind of guessing how fast, for example, ChatGPT was adopted or Instagram, I can simply say, "Hey, computer," and there's a visualization somehow that says, "Oh, here's what happens in the internet," and so forth. Which will mean two things. One, we're going to break the system boundaries. Today, I still need to know that I go and engage with Power BI or with the Google Workspace or whatever it might be. Tomorrow, I really just want to say this to the system, I have this need, I have these requirements, go figure out what needs to be happening. There's one application, one Copilot that does that for Microsoft. It's called the Business Chat, which is part of the M365 Copilot. That kind of goes already there because it doesn't require you to start a specific app. It effectively allows you to just say what you want, and it will pull the right things together. It will do the right thing. And I think that's what really Scotty was pointing to when he was going into the past for him in order to go and drive this forward. If you care more and so forth, we have another fireside chat at PwC's booth at the IAA Mobility booth in B3C10, I think. And I would love to see you and answer questions and enjoy some more time with you. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your time. Thank you.